The Krell made first contact at a professional football game, easing their flying saucer down on the 50-yard line. A mouth yawned open in the ship's belly, and a ramp protruded like a tongue. The terrified fans watched as an alien named Flash appeared in the portal and staggered down the ramp. Flash had a white blonde brush cut and ears like small fleshy trumpets. He wore a red jumpsuit with a bolt of lightning tearing across his chest. Flash hurried down the ramp saying, "Cocaine. We need cocaine." In John Kessel's short story, Invaders, the Krell cross the universe just to score coke. The Earthlings are confused, so the Krell explain that they have a different sense of the aesthetic. For them, the beauty of the cocaine molecule is simply shattering. Cocaine is the universe's most sublime chemical symphony. The Krell don't do coke, they experience it as art. Towards the end of the story, Flash reclines in trash bags in an alley, sharing a crack pipe with a fellow junkie. The alien makes a confession. That talk about the beauty of the cocaine molecule is high-minded nonsense. The Krell, Flash admits, do coke for kicks.
Okay.
Welcome to the indie artists like you create leverage in the music industry. I bet you're wondering how we're going to do that with this story about aliens and cocaine. Leverage is what you're going to need to get ahead in the new music business. You don't need anybody's permission, but you got to do it yourself. And nobody cares about your potential talent. They want to know, what have you done for me lately? And that's why we called it The C.L.I.M.B, C.L.I.M.B, creating leverage in the music business. This podcast exists because we want you to win, and that's what we're here to teach you. That's a Baxternym, by the way, from my good friend and co-host, Mr. Brent Baxter. Brent's an award-winning hit songwriter with cuts by Alan Jackson, Lady A, Joe Nichols, and more. And I forgot one. What's the one I forgot? Alan Jackson, Randy Travis, Lady A, Joe Nichols, and more. Got a couple number ones in Southern gospel in the last 18 months. The man's just a machine. What I love about Brent is he helps songwriters like you turn pro by revealing how you write like a pro, do business like a pro, and then on the regular, he's going to give you opportunities to meet with the pro and create the relationships it's going to take to climb the ladder. You can find Brent very easily at songwritingpro.com. Once again, that's songwritingpro.com.
And I would like to introduce you to my co-host, Johnny Dwinell. Johnny owns a Daredevil Production. They're breaking artists digitally by identifying new fans through data. Yeah, it's complicated, but thankfully, Johnny is smart. If you're an artist looking to increase your streams, blow up your video views, sell more live show tickets, and get discovered by new fans, TV, and music industry pros, then Daredevil Production can help. Daredevil has worked with multi-platinum artists like Colin Ray, Tracy Lawrence, Ty Herndon, and Andy Griggs, just to name a few. You can find Johnny at daredevilproduction.com. That is production, singular, no S, and there is no S because there is no other Johnny D. What's up, brother?
Woo! How about that open, huh?
Yeah. What?
So before you say a word, here's the next part.
Okay.
If you remember, the Krell, Flash admits, do coke for kicks, right?
Uh-huh.
And that's the point of Kessel's story, who's the author of this story. Fiction, like cocaine, is a drug. People may invent high-minded aesthetic or evolutionary justifications for their fiction habits, but story is just a drug we use to escape the boredom and the brutality of real life. Why do we go see a Shakespeare play or watch a film or read a novel or listen to a hit song? Ultimately, from Kessel's point of view, it's not to expand our minds, explore the human condition, or do anything else so noble. We do it for kicks, right? And what many evolutionary thinkers would agree that with Kessel's position, what are stories for? Nothing. The brain is not designed for story. There are glitches in its design that make it vulnerable to story. Stories in all their variety and splendor are just lucky accidents of the mind's jury-rigged constructions. Stories may educate us, deepen us, give us joy. Story may be one of the things that makes it most worthwhile to be human, but that doesn't mean the story has a biological purpose. This is what we're going to get into today. And this is why I knew you'd like this, because you might be thinking I'm talking about song lyrics. And I am, right, in a way, because it's all about story. That's right.
I happen to have on my hat today. If I got at the story conference when I went to with my sister, the hat
Nice.
says storyteller. I don't know if you can read it.
Yeah.
It's black on black. So who knew?
So this is by the way, I was just reading out of the Storytelling Animal book,
Uh huh.
which is a really good book, and I highly recommend it. We're gonna get into another little piece of that here in a second. But why am I talking about this? Because I want to share with you some, it's very early, but some early positive news about a um, the first of all, about a campaign that we're doing with an artist right now in real time
Mm-hmm.
who's embraced everything that we preach on this podcast, and the needle's starting to move. It's just a little bit. We're very early. We're 2.5
Mm-hmm.
weeks in on a 24-week run here,
Yeah.
so it's very early. But already they're starting to see some activity, and the big thing was that they embraced the concept that when you're done recording the album, you've only just begun.
Like the Carpenters.
Yeah, we've only
Yep.
just begun. A kiss for luck, and we're on our way. It literally now the promotion starts, and the secret to making this happen, the secret to breaking in an artist is the story. Now, what we just read here, what I just read was fiction. I'm not telling you to make up fiction, although some of you may. I mean, certainly, artists like Alice Cooper, Ozzy Osbourne, David Bowie, these are fictional characters. Guar, there's a
Mm-hmm.
million of them. Garth Brooks did Chris
Chris
Gaines.
Gaines.
These are fictional things, but uh, we're recognizing that story is what makes it happen, and recognizing your reality. And how many times have we talked about brand archetypes? Why do we talk about brand archetypes? Because that's your character, and within what the
The
story,
story.
and how are you going to tell that to get it? Because the reality is, it's just it doesn't matter how, how magicians never you know show their
Reveal their
tricks,
secrets. Yes.
reveal their secrets, right? Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because then the magic goes away, right?
Right.
Because it's an illusion, right?
Right.
Okay. It's not the case with stories. Like, the best, most professional screenwriters know every single play that's happening. They can dissect in 3 or 4 dimensions what another screenwriter is doing as they sit
Mm-hmm.
and watch a blockbuster movie, but cannot help but get drawn into it.
Right. Yes. I
Because even with all the secrets revealed, it still works, right?
I got a great compliment on one of my songs, a song I wrote with Byron Hill called "Ring on the Bar." That I don't know if the publisher, the one of the producer, whoever, but they were listening to going, man, I knew where you were going, but it still got me.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
I know where you're going, it still got me. It's like, yeah,
Mhm. When you tell it the right way, and the key point in that is I knew where you were going, and I still chose to go along for the ride
oh yeah,
because it was fascinating.
yeah. It's the
Because I
story
couldn't
still
help
got
it.
me. Yeah.
Because I couldn't help it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's just huge. So that's what we're going to get into today. But first, let's take care of some business. Join the C.L.I.M.B community if you haven't done so. That is
That needs to change.
facebook.com/groups/the C.L.I.M.B community. You got to ask to be let in. We let everybody in. So don't worry. Just make sure that you play by the rules. There's not that many of them. This is all about rock and roll music. We don't like that many rules, but
Mm-hmm.
we want to hear about everything you got to say about your song, about your gigs, about your wins, but we put them in special places. The only time you can put anything right in the feed is if you know it's going to be beneficial or of value to everybody else. And
Mm-hmm.
your new song and your gig, not of value to everybody else. Nobody cares about your gig in Seattle if they live in Miami. You know what I mean? So it's like, put the gigs in the gig post, put the songs in the song post, put the wins in the win post. That's what you do. Simple, simple, simple. But
Mm-hmm.
if you have a news story, if you got something that's uplifting, something that's funny, humor, like I like to put humor stuff in there
Yep.
sometimes. get people laughing, man, by all means, please contribute to the feed on that.
That's right.
You know?
Like today, I just the day that we record this, got an email from American Songwriter, had the story behind Back in Black, AC/DC. Where do you think I shared that? Into the feed in the C.L.I.M.B community. Why? Because it's awesome. And I ask a question like, what's your Back in Black story? We all have one. What's yours?
Yep.
So trying to add value. It's interesting for me as a writer to yell, I love that song. It's an all-time classic jam. What's the story behind it? Oh, great. Maybe someone else would be interested. It has nothing to do with me. So that kind of stuff we welcome in the feed.
Love it. We got any quick wins?
Yeah. Quick wins. We sure do. Every Thursday we post the New Heights post in the C.L.I.M.B community. It's where we encourage you to share your wins so we can celebrate with you. Sunday Joe Graham said, received a single song publishing deal for Church on the Porch. So dang excited. Now we pray for the right person to record it, and I keep working my butt off to pitch it. Prayer plus action equals results.
Good job, Sunday Joe.
Yes, congrats, Sunday Joe. And of course, you get people like Patrick Adams and Johnny Matt Music and people, giving our Atta Girls on that. Because we don't just, share our wins. We also get some some celebration to go with it. So
we support. Yeah,
that's right. Taylor Sapp said, this is a small one, but our virtual label established in 2020 just released its first album. So I don't know if that's small, Taylor, but it's a win. And big or small, we love them all.
How many friends you got that have their own label that just released its first album?
Exactly.
That's a big deal to me.
Yep. Sounds like a win to me.
Sounds like a win to me.
Yep. Let's see here. Michael Parker says lots of new songs and an old resurrected video. Time to start working on the business half of these stockpile tunes. That is true. And he shares a link there, which is appropriate here to one of those songs. And of course, there are more, but that's just what we'll share for right now. So all you folks, congratulations and keep on climbing.
Awesome. Well, yeah, good job, climbers. We love hearing about the wins. I'm so happy all these people getting single song contracts, publishing contracts, got big co-writes, syncs, all that stuff. It's ridiculous.
Good stuff.
Excuse me. Make sure that you subscribe or follow the podcast. My goodness. It's can you tell it's pollen season? My grill is literally yellow. My grill.
Yes. You're not talking about your gold teeth. You're talking about your car.
Oh yeah, no, my grill. Yeah, my grill is just yellow. The car drives
grill. It's not the car grill, the grill.
The car goes through and goes through car washes. It gets blown up. I need to wipe down the grill because it's full of pollen.
I got you. Yeah.
But make sure you follow the podcast and tell a friend about it. That's the best thing you can do. If you get meaning out of this, if you get value, tell another independent artist, songwriter, musician, let them know, hey, there's lots of gold in here, man. Come back and check this out. That's why we're doing it. We want to help you, we want to help you make it. We want to help you climb up there. This podcast exists because we want you to win. All right, so let's dig into this a little bit here. I'm going to try to make this one of my quicker ones because I'm in a hurry. So, most artists, let's just be honest, just fall flat on their face with regards to promotion. It feels icky. It feels braggadocious. It feels condescending. They're lazy sometimes. All they want to do is play in the sandbox, but they don't want to promote it, which is fine.
It's understandable.
As long as your expectation is that you just made a sand castle in the sandbox and nobody ever needs to see it, But for those who want to be professional, meaning they want to make money being the creative in this space, it's going to require promotion. It always requires promotion. It requires 5% creation, 95% promotion, but the promotion requires creation. And it's a really good itch to scratch. But I feel like most artists, it feels foreign to them. Even if they realize that's what they have to do, and even if maybe they're not lazy but they just don't know what to do, right? So it's frustrating. They don't know where to start. And I have the basic template today, the basic kind of framework, I guess. This is a really big picture. There's not going to be a lot of action items here, but I want to get your mindset right so you start asking the right questions. This is going to teach you kind of how to start, We, from the time you were born, have lived your life in stories. Stories are so potent and so effective. They're literally absolutely everywhere.
Mm.
I think let's just start with like the stories you tell yourself. Daydreams, the average daydream I read in this book lasts about 14 seconds.
Mhm.
And people have literally an obscene amount of them every single day. Every
Yeah.
person. Okay. Like every person has them every single day. We're creating stories. We start from when we're little kids, you know. Stories are so pervasive that's in political narration, right?
Mhm.
Something of political significance happens, and the left will craft one version of the story while the right crafts another version of the story. Both are using the same key building blocks, but with different outcomes and different heroes and different
Villains.
antagonists and yeah,
Yeah.
and different different results, right? Depending
Mhm.
on which story you want to hear, but it is a story on both sides.
Mhm.
Songwriters tell stories, right?
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Artists tell stories. Um, you know what a big daily, hourly, minutely, is that a word? Storyteller is Facebook.
Yeah.
Facebook's all about stories, isn't it? It's
Mhm.
all about stories. Now, some of those stories we know to be true, and we like those people. Some of those stories we also know to be false. They're complete bullshit, you know? People have different lives on Facebook than they have in real life, and
Yes.
that's how we tell them. And that's right there is such a great story. When I was
Mhm.
kind of researching this, I wasn't gonna use this, but I just was thinking of the uh, the lyrics for Melanie Martinez's Dollhouse. It's you know, it's just all about she sort of he takes her house that she grew up in and paints it as like a dollhouse.
Hmm.
And here's what happens. Here's what's really going on in this house, but outside it looks perfect and they're wealthy and it's all the BS and it's all the story, the pomp and
Yeah.
circumstance, the theater. And here's what really happens behind it. Well, that's just fascinating, isn't it? You
Mhm.
know, um, gossip is all about stories
Oh, yeah?
and largely irresistible. I'm not going to
Right.
lie. I've spent a little bit of time on something that doesn't make me money and it isn't like, you know, germane to, let's say, my relationship with Janelle or with my family or anything like that. But I've been this guilty pleasure, been digging into the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard thing. Like,
Oh, gosh.
dude, it's fascinating. I
Oh,
want
boy.
Johnny to come out on top. You know what I mean?
I have no opinions on it because I have no information on it.
I don't know what information I have, but it's just it's like crack. Like literally it's like crack, just like the
Mhm.
Krell, just like the Flash story.
Yeah.
Um the Bible.
Oh, man, Jesus told I was just thinking about that before you mentioned that. Jesus told many parables, when
Yeah.
teaching and to get a point across. And, of course, that's he's telling a story, and then, of course, that's within the story of his life, and, of course, the Old Testament full of stories. Yes.
Yeah. And here's the deal. Like kids grow up living every single kid grows up living in a make-believe world that is 100% about stories, right? In this book, The Storytelling Animal, um, Vivian Paley, who is a teacher and a writer and a child psychologist, says pretend play is deadly serious fun. Every day, children enter a world where they must confront dark forces, fleeing and fighting for their lives. I've written some of this book at my kitchen table with the land of make believe changing shape around me. One day, as I sat at the table, my two daughters were making elaborate pretend preparations to run away from home. Either they had played dolls on the back deck and they had run screeching through the yard as sharks tried to eat them. They
Hmm.
managed to harpoon the sharks with sticks. Later that same day, I took a break to play Lost Forest Children with my youngest daughter, Annabelle. She set the scene. Pretend our parents are dead, she told me, bited by tigers. From now on, we would live deep in a tiger infested forest, fending for ourselves. Our children's pretend play is clearly about many things: mommies and babies, monsters and heroes, spaceships and unicorns. It is also about only one thing: trouble. Sometimes the trouble is routine, as when playing house and the howling baby won't take her bottle and the father can't find his good watch. But often the trouble is existential. And she goes on to show this, crazy, like just this unedited tape of kids playing and just the stuff that they say. And it's the point being, these kids have absolutely no craftsmanship or teaching or education
Mhm.
on the basic fundamental parts of a story, but yet there's a protagonist, there's an
Mhm.
antagonist, there's a challenge that has to be overcome. It's fascinating,
Oh,
you
yeah, I
know?
mean, my daughter, Ruby Jean, she just turned 8, and she's in that phase where when "come play with me" means, "Okay, here's you're walking through the woods and you see a fox," and of course she's the fox. I'm like,
Uh,
"Oh, look at that fox, I better shoot it." She's, "No, no," you say, "What is that? What is that?" And so the play right now with her is like all pretend stuff. She's a character, I'm a character, and she will it's funny where she'll after a certain point she'll stop and she's like, "Let's start over." Because like she's refining, almost like refining the story.
yeah, it's
And
a
we're just
rewrite,
it's a
rewrite.
rewrite. So we're like, and when we're back at the end, she's like, "Okay, you're walking through the forest." I'm like, "I'm walking through the forest." I see it. And yeah.
So, I mean, the secret to all artist promotion is all about the story.
Hmm.
Okay. It again, I'm stressing, it doesn't have to be fictional. I think actually for most artists, the more authentic the story is, the better it will be, right?
Yeah.
However, you are the character. You're in this story. I think f- when we have artists who are vulnerable, and there's so many quote unquote artists who and songwriters who, and of course I always think of songwriters as artists, who the dichotomy is that's what they want to be, which requires vulnerability, and yet
Hmm.
that is the hardest thing that they have to overcome, is how to be vulnerable,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
So, but it's all so therefore within that you have to be able to, it's the humility, right? It's the ability to be vulnerable, and the ability, I think with the humility sometimes gets in the way, where we're like, my life is boring, or
Right. Nobody wants
I'm
to
not
hear.
that, I don't really have some big Star Wars story to tell.
Right.
But it's not the case, um so I want you to start thinking about stories. I want you to read The Storytelling Animal. Read um, The Anatomy of a Story by John Truby. The Storytelling Animal is written by Jonathan Goschel. These are incredibly, these are manuals that will help. I think they'll help your songwriting, but they're definitely going to help. Like, what the hell do I do when the album's done? Right? Like, how do we
Mhm.
begin to put this together? Well, you're going to tell stories now. You have to tell stories. Stories are how you're going to get somebody in a tyranny of choice, which is the digital platform,
Yep.
with all the noise, like, uh, this is how you're going to stick out, is with an attention to craftsmanship on the story, but in promotion now, as opposed to songwriting. Your album's done.
Hmm.
So what can we tell? So the good news is that climbers, you should already be skilled, very skilled at this one, or at least well on your way to proficiency. Okay. And you already know this, but there's this is probably 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, but remember when we interviewed Tom Jackson?
Yeah. Hmm.
So Tom Jackson, guys, is like the de facto top dog, number one guy for live show production,
Hmm.
right? So when artists are having, this is the guy that worked with Taylor Swift on her first tour, and when he got done with her, her merch sales went up 600%.
That's ridiculous. Yeah.
Okay. Which this is arguable, but I think this is my opinion, that there's a number of things that happen, a number of people on the team, but
Mhm.
Tom Jackson was one of the very, very important cogs in that machine
Mhm.
that got her to, in this case, sell so much merch on the tour, the first tour she was out with Brad Paisley, which was a favor, right? Okay, we'll take her out for 2 weeks because you're Scott Bruschetta, and of course we'll do that. She's young, she doesn't sing that well, right? Because
Yeah.
she's not where she is now. This is the first album, but then she starts selling so much freaking merch that
Mhm.
they have no choice but to assume she's putting butts in seats.
Right. And that's what they want
So,
from a opener.
which is what they want from an opener, sell more tickets so they keep her on tour, right?
Mhm.
That was a big, 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 big deal. And of course, based on the fact that they're pushing the crap out of that on radio, that whole tour was piggybacked on top of market penetration. Miracles started to happen, and that they just skated in at 800,000 plus units sold to be able to appear on the CMAs, where she got bumped from the live performance and where Rick Barker negotiated the moment where
Mhm.
she sang Tim McGraw to Tim McGraw, and they asked for forgiveness instead of permission. They didn't tell Tim that's what they were going to do, or Faith for that matter, who was sitting right next to him. And if you know Tim and Faith, like, she's got some opinions on people making moves on her man. You know what I
Right.
mean?
That's where it's an advantage to be like 13, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, and that was the moment she became a star, right? So,
Yep.
I mean, all
Mhm.
that, it all builds up. It's a piece of it, right? Um, so, assume human beings were so bound up in stories that because we see so many of them, we have so many of them in our own heads every day, that we're desensitized to, like, the weird and witchy power, you know?
Mhm.
Um, so I just wanted to kind of share, like, this is like a really proud moment for me. I want you guys to kind of experience, like, how far this goes with a very specific campaign that we're running with an artist named Rick Monroe and the Hitmen. Okay.
Mm.
Rick's been on the show,
Yep.
been on
Video content challenge.
content challenge. And by the way, so let me just backtrack for 1 second. Um, in this book, when they start breaking down stuff in stories, the first piece of the story is premise, and premise is where 90% of storytellers fail.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
isn't so they tell a story about uh, like, let me just share this one thing that's actually pretty fascinating. But it's talking about a just a story about a man and his children, or and his child, in a
Mausoleum. Death
no,
Race
in a
3000.
hold on,
Sushi bar in Soho.
hold on 1 second. I'll edit this, but
Intergalactic warship.
oh wait, okay, okay, here we go. So so here's the difference on premise, right? So once upon a time, a father and a daughter were at a grocery store. They were walking down the cereal aisle. The father was pushing a cart. The cart's left wheel clattered and creaked. The daughter, Lily, was 3 years old. She was wearing her favorite dress. It was flowery and flowing, and it was fanned out wonderfully when she twirled. She held her father's index finger in her left fist in her left fist. In her right fist, she held the grocery store list in a sweaty wad. The father stopped in front of the Cheerios. He scratched his stubbled chin and asked Lily, "What kind of cereal are we supposed to get again?" Lily released his finger, unwadded the paper, and smoothed it on the curve of her belly. She then squinted at the near feminine script, or the neat feminine script, sorry. She ran her index finger over the list of items as she was reading the words Cheerios, Lily announced. The father let Lily choose the big yellow box herself and push it up and over the side of the cart. Later, the father would remember how the people passed them by in the aisle. He would remember the way the women smiled at Lily as they cruised by with their carts and how they nodded approvingly at him as well. He would remember the pimply stock boy passing by with his mop and his sloshing bucket on wheels. He would remember the way Lily's small hand held his finger and how the throb of her grip lingered after she let it go. And most of all, he would remember the short man with the dark glasses and the red baseball cap, Tug Low. The way he slouched next to the pyramid display of Pop-Tarts, smiling down at Lily as she passed, showing a wet gleam of incisor. The father and daughter walked a little farther down the aisle, then stopped. Lily hugged her father's thigh. The father then cradled her small head to his leg. He stared at the box of sugary cereal she had thrust into his hand, saying, "Daddy, please." The father slowly shook his head and read the ingredients, fascinated. There was no food in this food, just chemical substances like a trisodium phosphate, red 40, blue 1-BHT, and hydroxydrine hydrochloride. The father's eyes moved up to scan the nutritional information, counting grams of sugar and fat. He never felt Lily let go of his leg, never felt her head slip from beneath his sheltering hand. Still staring at the box in his hand, the father said aloud, "I'm sorry, baby, this stuff isn't good for us. Mommy will be mad if we buy it." Lily was silent. The father turned to her, knowing that she would be standing there with her arms crossed tight, her chin tucked down under her clavicle and her lips pushed out in a pout. He turned, but Lily wasn't there. He spun slowly on his heel, and still Lily wasn't there, and neither was the short man with the red baseball cap. Right? Now imagine if the story was told and the father and the daughter just got the sugary cereal and went home. Premise, right? It's about premise. What happens? Isn't that what Song Title Challenge is about? It's an exercise in determining premise.
Yes. We have this title. What's it about?
Yeah. And how can we spin the premise to make it more intriguing? Right?
Mm-hmm.
How can you take something like Drink You on My Mind and everybody thinks like, oh, I know what this is going to be about. And you're like, oh, it's a different premise, isn't it?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right. And isn't Video Content Challenge about that? It's a brainstorming session on premise. Like, what, how can we put a story together for the lyric video and a story together for the music video and then tell all these other stories. So with that in mind, like, with this Rick Monroe thing, like Rick took a course and by the way, side note on that, I am launching a new 5-day Facebook ads challenge. It will be in June. I will tell you the exact date later because I'm going to tell you the date when I have a link for you to actually get in on it. Okay. But Rick went through this whole thing and then took the course and had the epiphany. He was like, man, I get it. Like promotion is like songwriting for promotion. It's like that same creative itch. It's that same sandbox, but we've got to come up with stories and we got to come up with a way to convince somebody to listen to it after we're done with the record. So when we're done with the record, we're not done.
Right.
Working.
Yeah, exactly.
And then like, you want to talk about planets aligning. So he came to me and he was like, hey man, so I want to do something. Like, here's my budget. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying about market penetration. I see what you're saying about content. And we want to make a go at this instead of, working a single, which we always encourage our climbers to eliminate that word from your vocabulary.
Right.
We're doing 4 releases, 6 weeks apart. That's 24 weeks. We're 2.5 weeks into it. We're in 5 specific markets that he already has draws in. And that's where we're pushing the ads out. That's where we're pushing the paid promotion. And we're telling stories, right? And the stories are consonant with the song that we're pushing.
Right.
Okay. So on Video Content Challenge, this was your idea, Brent. And I don't know if you've had a chance to go to his page. Have you gone to his page and seen all this? friggin' content?
I've seen a good bit of it showing up in my feed, and I've enjoyed it, and so on many
Oh my God.
levels.
So the song's called World's Gone Crazy. It's about everything you can imagine about how the world's gone crazy. And one of the ideas Brent has was like, hey man, and I don't know if you knew this about Rick, but Rick's originally from Clearwater, Florida. I didn't know if you made that connection or not,
Well, I
but
knew he was Florida man because we talked
you
about
did. Okay,
that.
okay.
Yes.
So like you did, I didn't. Like or if I did know, I forgot about it.
Yeah, listen to the show. It's on there. We talked about it. Yeah.
um, I guess I wasn't paying attention. um, but you're like, hey, have you seen like the Florida man social media accounts? Where it's just these insane headlines
Mhm.
about Florida man, and Florida man gets arrested for stabbing somebody even though he has no arms.
Yeah.
Right, like crazy stuff like that. Florida man gets arrested for trying to call the police to complain that his meth dealer had stepped on the meth too much, and he gets arrested for having meth.
Right,
Like
yeah.
it's like crazy stuff like that. So my goal was to push Rick to, and this is always my challenge. So it's not just Rick; it's like every artist. Like you're not done with the music video.
Mhm.
You're not done with the lyric video. If we're going to try to achieve market penetration, we need to have a whole lot of content, at least one piece of content a week that we're going to push out. We're going to take, your total budget. We're going to divide it up into 4 releases. And then each one of those equal pieces, we're going to divide up into 6 weeks. And then we're going to determine what weight, obviously I'm going to spend more money pushing out the music video
Mhm.
than I am going to push out like other pieces of content. So here's a situation where it's not even his story.
Right.
But what they did was they so everybody in the band gets on board
Mhm.
because I'm like, you've got to, like, I can't make the content for you.
Right.
Right. I can quarterback this whole thing. I can put these ads out. I can put the strategy together, but you have to do the work,
Mhm.
And he got it. He was like, okay, we're in, man. And so first Rick got it, but then the whole band got it.
Yeah.
And they had somebody. Now Rick is, what I call a mid-level artist, right? Like he's got just renewed a new sponsorship agreement from Monster Energy Drinks, which he's had for a while. He's got a Sprinter van that's wrapped with his name on it and stuff.
Mhm.
They probably do over 220 shows a year. Obviously they're like everybody else are coming back from the pandemic and whatnot, but he probably grosses about $400,000 a year with that band, but they're just at this glass ceiling where he's not big enough to get like a bigger, like a small, big agency,
Yeah.
booking agency. He's not, but he has all the relationships with radio. He has all the relationships with the promoters, all the relationships with these other writers. Malcolm Springer produced his record.
Mhm.
They did it with Nappy Roots, which is a well-known artist. And their second single or second release is going to be with Nappy Roots. So he's there, but he's sort of like pseudo famous. Like people recognize him, but he
Yeah.
can't get any love in the industry. And so, let's go for some market penetration. So I'm trying to push him to do, and just the lyric video, music video, but we need 4 other weeks. We need 4 other pieces of content that we can push out. And
Mhm.
we had him on Video Content Challenge to try to decide what that would be. And you came up with the whole Florida Man thing. And they're like, okay, well, we took, Brent's lead and said, they set up a green screen in his basement,
Yeah.
right? And so this is all self-contained people, right? The guitar player, so they got somebody on their team, Meg, who does a lot of video editing and stuff like that. Now, Rick's wife is a graphic artist, so she does a lot of the graphic stuff for him. She's a pro, okay? And she, makes her own living doing graphic artists, and then she handles all of Rick's stuff. So awesome, right?
Yeah.
You got in-house graphic artists.
Nice.
But they were going outside for a music editor, and then or for a video editor, and then the guitar player was like, you know what? He just had the epiphany. If I can learn how to frickin' master Pro Tools because it's a software platform that I need to scratch that itch to make what we need to make, to
Yeah.
do what I want to do, I can damn sure do it on a video platform too.
Right.
And so he just downloaded it and started going like, armpits deep in the pool, trying to figure out how to do this. And now he's editing all this content. So they're completely self-contained.
Nice.
They are not spending money on video content. They're spending time and creative energy.
And the guitar player really made himself almost unfireable at this point.
Right?
By the way, talk about making your own job security.
It comes with a lot of money. Not only do we get rid of you, but now who are we going to get to? Yeah,
exactly. He's got real expensive to fire, by the way.
Oh my gosh. So they put a green screen up in Rick's basement and a pseudo news desk, and they're doing, like, if you guys go to look for Rick Monroe and the Hitmen on Facebook, you can see some of this content. And they're just doing, like, these are maybe 30-second bits, man. Okay, where it's Rick, he looks show ready, like he's about ready to walk out on stage. One of the guys from his band, I don't know what instrument that dude plays, and they just read these headlines and they react to them. And there's it's like a news desk, but think like Anchorman, except for it's silly. There's like a couple bottles of liquor on there. There's some Monster Energy drinks, of course, on there for their sponsorship,
right?
And they started to. So this is one version of stories that they're telling, right? Where they're like, hey, we're, they'll just, Rick will read one of these headlines, and then the other guy will be like, what the hell? And just react to it and be like, what? And they have a tech talk. They have tech talk with one of their other guys who's just like talking about all this high level crap. And he always comes in and tries to explain, like, in a tech way, like that nobody understands what he's doing. And they just end up talking over him, and it becomes this like little skit. And what's happening in the background this whole time is the hook from The World's Gone Crazy.
Exactly. And
the whole time.
It's stories about the world going crazy. So it's stories on brand with the song, and so it all makes sense together.
It's fascinating, it's entertaining, and it's a story, and you can't not watch it.
So
they have a field reporter, which is this one guy he's actually the editor. I know that guy's Alan. He's the editor, and he's just in a field.
Of course, field reporter.
He's just always in a field. Somebody's coming to pick me up, right? Like, hey guys, like he just took off laughing. I don't know what that means. But so what's going on out there? And they just start laughing at him. I mean, they've created this whole little thing, and these are like little stories, and it's just them having a good time and playing about with one another. But it's all stories. And this is like, they're doing this daily, y'all.
Yeah.
Okay. And so they've stacked up like all of the content for the rest of this 6-week run on this release. And then get this, the next release called Common Ground. Okay, that's what they did with Nappy Roots. It's a rap group, Buffalo, the lead rapper, Black, and they're going to talk. It's all about how we can all get along, we can all get together, and so now I'm trying to encourage them to do the news stories, but with crazy stuff that you never hear about on the news, right? Like, oh my God, this, today in Baltimore, a Black family who lived next to a white family. They were friends and they had a barbecue and they ate a lot and they probably got a little overserved because they had some fun with the beers watching the game and they just enjoyed one another's company and then they went home. Oh my God. That's insane. Like, how does that happen? One of them was a cop. No, I mean, like, but they're going like another route where they're just going to go out and like try to find common, but their heads are spinning on, like, oh, what if we do, like, we'll go ask people about, try to find common ground with everybody. We're just going to go walk up to random people and find common ground,
Yeah.
So they've gone off on this other route too, where they have this thing called Boots and Shorts. That just sounds like as stupid as it just is the dumbest name. Okay.
Yeah.
But they're all in boots and shorts. Cause he's like, when you're on the road and you're going from the hotel room to the bus or whatever. And, you take a shower and all stuff, whatever, your clothes are on the bus and you got to make that walk from the room to the bus.
Yeah.
Like you go in your boots and shorts and you just look like an idiot. So we decided to turn that into some content where we tell some stories, and they're telling stories about their favorite movies. They went on this thing with Matt Walsh, who went on some rant about stray shopping carts in a parking lot at a grocery store. And so they went out and did like an on scene, like, here's look at this. It's ridiculous, and they're like, just return the shopping carts. And this whole thing. And it did so well that we're putting a little bit of money behind that from the budget, right? Because it's like sort of took off this little bit. And there's been, it hasn't happened yet, but there's been some talk that maybe Matt Walsh might share that on his page or whatever.
Oh, wow.
So just by taking swings at the plate and getting into the stories, people are reacting, and then other people are reacting. And the numbers already in 2.5 weeks are starting to come up.
Yeah.
They're starting to come up. And we've got 21 weeks left to go.
Nice.
So, there's not enough time in this episode to get really down and dirty with the breakdown of storytelling. But the same instincts that y'all have for writing a song and blowing my mind with a lyric, right, is that same itch that you want to scratch, but embrace it with creating video content to promote the work when you're done with it.
Yeah. And again, this is not all, like, say, in Rick Monroe's case, these are not all his stories. He's not having to mine his own life for this stuff. It definitely can be.
Yeah.
Definitely can be. If you have a song about, whatever, looking like a fool in front of people, then you could definitely do a series on here are the top 10 times that I look like an idiot in front of people. And what's yours or whatever. You can definitely mine your own life for this, but a lot of this, like, world gone crazy stuff is just looking around and telling other people's stories.
Yeah.
But it's still story.
Yeah. It's stories. It's stories. It's always stories. Like if you today, you're listening to this podcast today. So for the next 2 hours, I want you to hyper focus on identifying stories. Right? Whether it's in an ad that you see on your phone, whether it's a song that you're listening to,
a TV commercial,
whether it's some hustle your kid's pulling on you, trying to explain to you why they didn't rake the lawn, or
Yeah.
well, there's always a story, and we cannot get around it. There it is. It's right there. That's the answer. And everybody either sucks at this or just straight up doesn't do it. That's the difference. That's how you cut through the noise that you're so frustrated with.
Yeah.
That's what you do to make it happen.
That's awesome.
That's all I got to say about that.
Oh, it's not, but I know it's not, but you're just out of time.
All right, guys. Well, listen, hey, learn about the difference between a one-to-one digital world and a one-to-many broadcast world, so that when you are creating these stories, you still need to honor the digital platform when you serve them up. You can find that with my free PDF download called Whoever Owns the Traffic Rules the Road. And that is at giftfromjohnny.com, JOHNNY, giftfromjohnny.com. It's absolutely free. Just tell us where to send it, and we will get that to you so you can start asking the right questions here and start getting the right answers on how you're going to promote your career forward. All right. This podcast exists because we want you to win, so keep on climbing.
And we'll see you at the top.